All right, so I have so many things that I want to go over. I am doing a video and showing you the Frindle book, but the version that you are looking at. So here is Frindle, and when I open up to my chapter 2 for Frindle, it looks the same as your chapter 2. So there are no differences between the book that I have in my hand and the book that you find online. So inside of your instructions, it told you after I read to you and went over some questions that your job was to read chapter 2, then answer your questions. So what you should do is you should have your book in one tab, and right here I have another tab that has my questions. So I should have both of those tabs open so that way when I need to go back and look into the book for an answer, I can do that because I have that extra tab open. So I wanted to go over some of the most missed questions. So I have a markdown in my book and I'm looking at another screen so I can make sure. So if I look, our question starts off with, um, all right, so what is the meaning of the word monopoly on page 6? So this right here is page 6. So then as I am reading, I am looking for the word monopoly. If you use Google Read Write and remember how we did it in class, then that means you can go through and you can click your highlighting tool and you can start highlighting things. So here, I should be able to highlight this and mark, doing like my track and tag, that this was number 3. This was my third question that I was answering. So here, in looking at this word, let's see. Click to highlight that blue. All right. So here I have monopoly. But I can't just look at that one single word by itself. In order to answer this question, I need to read around the word to see what is happening. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take a different color highlighter because I need to read around the word. So here, I'm going to read after the word and I'm going to read before the word. And I can't just read one or two sentences. I have to be willing to go and look around. So I'm going to read that paragraph. It says, there are about 150 kids in fifth grade, and there were 7 fifth grade teachers, 2 math, 2 science, 2 social studies, but only 1 language arts teacher. In language arts, Mrs. Granger had a monopoly and a reputation. So right before it talks about her having a monopoly, it also talks about the different teachers in the different classes. It talks about 7 fifth grade teachers total. 2 of those teachers were math, 2 of those were science, 2 were social studies, but only 1 language arts teacher. Mrs. Granger is the language arts teacher. She is the only one. So if I'm looking at my answer choices, where it starts talking about monopoly, it says A, complete control. Well, you know what? I'm going to mark that as a possibility because if I think about complete control, it goes along with her being the only one. If you're the only one, that means you have complete control over language arts. B said card games. Well, as I think about it being used in this particular sentence, we're not talking about games. We're talking about the number of teachers that teach each subject. C says board games. Again, that's not a reasonable answer choice. Yes, Monopoly is a board game, but if you think about when we talk about our vocabulary words, words have more than one meaning. So this is not the game we're talking about. We're talking about the number of people that have something. And D is top hat. Top hat does not go along with my best answers. So my best answer choice is A. Mrs. Granger has complete control. She is the only one that is teaching language arts. So you might have a different choice in teachers that you may get for science and social studies and math, but there is only one person that is going to teach you language arts in 5th grade. So let's look at the next question. The next question says, why did Nick have no particular use for the dictionary? So I'm going to go ahead and look to see where I marked that in my book. I marked it on page 11. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll to page 11. So about halfway down that page, I see right here where it says Nick had no particular use for the dictionary. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. All right. So as I'm looking, I notice that that doesn't tell me why. It just tells me that he has no use for it. So I need to read to keep going on to see, well, what does he say? So I'm going to read the rest of the paragraph and then I might have to go on. So it said he liked words a lot and was good at using them, but he figured that he got all the words he needed just by reading, and he read all the time. So I now learned that he has no use for the dictionary because he feels like all the words he needs, he can get them just by reading. So let's go ahead and look at our answer choices. So here, A, he could just ask a family member. B, he already knew a list of words from 4th grade. C, he has already graduated from Lincoln Elementary. And D, he can use Google to answer on his tablet. Well, I look at those answer choices and what I just read, I need to keep reading because I haven't gone over any of those particular reasons. So maybe it's as I read further. So I'm going to read further in the paragraph. I'm going to read the next couple of sentences, so I'm going to highlight those. It says, when Nick ran into a word he didn't know, he always asked his brother or dad or whoever was handy what it meant, as if they knew him. So he did not want to ask Mrs. Granger. So if I look at that answer choices again, he has no particular reason to want to use this dictionary. It starts off by telling me because he felt like he could just read the words and figure them out. But then it says when he ran into a word he didn't know, what did he do? He asked his brother, his dad, or whoever was handy to figure out what that word meant. So I go back and look at my answer choices. It says, A, he would just ask a family member. Well, let's look right here. It doesn't say verbatim family member, but who is his brother? His brother is a family member. Who is his dad? His dad is a family member. So here it says that he might ask his brother or his dad. Well, those are family members. So I'm going to pause. That's a good answer choice, and I'm going to keep on looking. It says, A, he already knew the word list from 4th grade. Well, that's not going along. We're talking about now in 5th grade. Why does he feel? We didn't talk about a 4th grade list. C, he graduated from Lincoln Elementary. He is still in elementary school. He has not graduated. And D, he was able to Google the answers on his tablet. Now, that might be what we do today, but that's not what he did in the book. So my best answer choice should be A, that he is going to ask a family member like his brother or his dad. All right. The next question we need to go over is what does the author compare Mrs. Granger's favorite dictionary? So as I go, I'm going to scroll back down to page 10 in order to answer that question. And in that second paragraph, I'm going to go right here. So it says Mrs. Granger kept a full set of 30 dictionaries on a shelf at the back of the room. Her pride and joy was one of those huge dictionaries with every word in the universe in it. So right here, it's telling me about her pride and joy, the one that she liked the most. That would be her favorite one. So here we're looking to what does she compare it to? So here it just tells me in that sentence that that was her pride and joy, her favorite. It gave me a idea of what it was like because it told me that it was big. The next part of that sentence says that it takes two kids to carry that huge pride and joy favorite dictionary. So I keep going on. It, referring to the dictionary, sat on its own little table at the front of her classroom, sort of like the altar in the front of the church. Right here, it is comparing where and how Mrs. Granger's um, dictionary sits to the altar that may be at the front of the church. So if I'm looking at my answer choices, uh, it says A, the desk behind Nick. She's not comparing it to the desk behind Nick. It, the dictionary, sat on a little table at the front of her classroom, sort of like the altar in front of the church. So I'm comparing where and how her dictionary sits to where and how a Bible might sit at the front of a church on a little altar, a little table. B, the bookshelves in the room. Again, we are not comparing it to anything but the altar, like at the front of a church. C, the altar in church. That's my best answer, but I still need to read D. D, it says the trophy case in a baseball stadium. That wasn't discussed. So my best answer choice is going to go right along with this yellow highlight that she is comparing it like the altar in front of the church. All right, next answer we need to go over. According to pages 10 and 11, why does Mrs. Granger require each student to have an acceptable dictionary? So right here, it says, according to pages 10 and 11. Well, I just read that paragraph at the top, so I don't need to read that again because I know that that is not going to tell me why the kids have to have an acceptable dictionary. So I'm going to start right here at the word every. Every graduate of Lincoln Elementary School for the past 35 years could remember standing at that table and listening to Mrs. Granger's battle cry, look it up. That's why we have a dictionary. Um, so I'm gonna pause for a second just because we just went over that part right here because one of the words asks you about battle cry. So here's the word battle cry. Again, I need to go around the word to figure out what that word means. And we'll come back to the other question. I ain't forget. All right. So here was battle cry. I need to know, well, around that word battle cry, what's happening. Standing at the table, the kids are listening to Mrs. Granger. Mrs. Granger is making the battle cry. What is the battle cry that she's saying? She's saying, look it up. What are they looking up? A word. That's why we have dictionaries. This is what Mrs. Granger is saying. Every graduate, every student who has ever gone to Lincoln Elementary knows that this is what she has said for the past 35 years. That's a long time. Everybody knows this battle cry. Look it up. That's why we have the dictionary. I'm looking at my answer choices. It says A, it's a slogan. Maybe. Maybe we need to go over that word slogan. So we're going to hold on that one and look at B. B says supper, super. Well, no, that doesn't go along. C, being upset. So that could possibly be how she's feeling, but it's not a battle cry. And D says big tears. So we see that word cry, but crying is not what she's doing. She's not crying in front of the kids trying to get them to look up words. So slogan. A slogan is it goes along with what someone would say. Okay, so like if you have your different restaurants. Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has a slogan. Their slogan is to eat more chicken. And you have the cow that's telling you to do that, right? So here you have Mrs. Granger. She is